Hey everybody, remember me? I know it's been a long time, and I apologize. Life has been very, very, very busy the last month or so. I think I haven't posted a video now for about a month now, so I just wanted to grab a quick minute. We're on heading out again. No rest for the weary, right? So Arlene and Bella's back in town, and we're going. It's her spring break, so we're going to go down to Key West, Florida. Go check out Key West a little bit. So I'll try to shoot some video of that down there, our little trip down there. And the nice thing about it, we're going to get to see 3 of our 4 kids. We're going down today to see William down in Jacksonville, and Nathan flew in, and he's going to be there. And then of course William and Morgan, his wife Morgan, and then we're going to see, and of course Bella's with us, so we're going to go down there and see them. Benjamin is currently at sea on patrol with the Coast Guard, and he was doing migrant patrols. So there's a constant flow of migrants coming out of Cuba. Not so much Cuba as Haiti. He said there's a lot of Haitians that are trying to come over, and they were on patrol, the first part of their patrolling for that, trying to catch them, and a lot of times they're coming over in leaky boats and everything else. He said it's pretty, it's not their favorite mission because, although they're saving their lives most likely because the ships they're on are pretty dangerous, but they're, they don't want to go back to Haiti. So they're not too happy about that. So, but now they're doing drug patrol. So doing that now, trying to keep illegal drugs out of the country. So real proud of him. But so he won't be there. So 3 of the 4 kids will be there. But anyway, what have I been up to the last month that I couldn't even stop in to say hi? So, by the way, before I get started, June, I hope you feel better. I got your note and everything. I'm glad to see you're recovering and everything else. June down in Australia. Always nice to see your comments and everything else. So I hope you and your family are doing well and that you get well soon. So, what have I been doing? So, I give you a little bit of context here. So, decided back mid last year that I was done working in Abu Dhabi. I was going to finish up my contract and then come home. And I was going to put in the applications with the airlines and everything else. In the meantime, while I was working that, I talked with some folks at Boeing, and they had some job openings still working around simulators. And so I reached out to them and talked with them a little bit, and I made it real clear, look, hey, I want to go back to the airlines. They said, hey, we'll work with you. We think we can make this work and do both. So I'm like, well, that would be pretty sweet. So I interviewed, got hired, and started work with Boeing in January. I think I talked about that. So I went, got trained, and since then it usually involves traveling. So I get to work from home, which is nice. But the other part of that is that I have to travel, and I just got back 2 days ago from my third trip to Altus, Oklahoma. I went and did that, and I've been to Charlotte once, so I've traveled 4 times since January 13th. So usually the trips are pretty short. In the meantime, in between that, I'm working from home, and then I'm also interviewing. And I put in a bunch of applications. I sent in an application with Delta, and the fact that I have not flown a heavy airplane since 2011. Recency of experience is a big thing with the airlines, and they were like, why don't you give us a call after you update your resume, which means get some flying time somewhere and come back and talk to us. So I also put in an application with an airline called Breeze, which is a low-cost carrier, a new startup low-cost carrier. And the thing that attracted me about them was one of their domiciles, one of their home bases. So with the airlines, they fly all over, but the pilots and aircrew typically are based out of domiciles, is what they call them. So like Delta's domiciles, Atlanta, of course, Detroit, New York City, LA, Salt Lake City, and Seattle. That's their domiciles. Breeze's domiciles are a lot in the Southeast. So Charleston's one of them. And I'm going, well, hey, I live in Charleston, and talk with all my airline friends. If you live in where your domicile is, you don't have to travel. You don't have to commute. So like my brother-in-law flies for Delta. He lives in Norfolk, Virginia. And he will go to the airport and get on a Delta flight up to New York City. And it's a one-hop flight, an hour-and-a-half trip or whatever it is up there. And he lands in New York, and he goes in, checks in, and goes to work. It's pretty easy to commute when it's not. It's really easy until it's not. So if the flight gets full and somebody's already taken the jump seat, he's got to find some other way up there. And so not having to commute makes things a whole lot simpler. So anyway, that's what attracted me to Breeze, and I interviewed with Breeze back in the end of January. That was my first interview, my first airline interview. Went really well, and about 5 days later, I get an email saying, hey, congratulations, let's start the paperwork, go on, you're hired. Now what happens is an airline will interview you, they'll look at everything, and then they'll give you either tell you, hey, thanks, but no thanks, or they'll give you a conditional job offer, meaning you've got some other paperwork to do, you got to pass drug tests, you got to do all this stuff, and then, we'll verify all your other records, and then you start. Then they'll give you a training date. So I did all the paperwork and everything else, and Breeze was like, well, things are kind of backed up. We're busy. We'll get back to you. It's looking like probably July for a training date. I'm like, oh, okay. So in the meantime, I looked. So Breeze carries passengers, and I would have to work the commute, hey, where am I going to fly out of? If I train, another thing to think about too with the airlines is seniority is king. So if you get a line number, so you get hired, your line number is 1,000. So there's 999 people above you that can pick before you. So if you get into a training class and they have, what'll happen is they'll have, 10 people in the class, and here's 10 spots where people go. They'll somehow come up with a way to pick. Usually it's by social security number or age or something. And they'll say, okay, well, where do you want to go? And the number one person will go, well, I want to go to Charleston. And the first 5 people may want to go to Charleston. Well, if I'm number 6 and there's no more spots at Charleston, guess what? Where else am I going to go? I got to figure out where else I'm going to go, and then having to commute to there from Charleston. And then you're there until a spot opens up at Charleston, and then all the people that want to go to Charleston go, yeah, I'll go. And they look, okay, what's your line number? What's your line number? Okay, well, your line number's higher than his, so you get to go. You don't. And so seniority's king. All right, so thinking about all of that, I started looking at some other companies, and I'm looking at a couple of cargo carriers, and FedEx, UPS it's pretty much, that's the pinnacle of cargo carrying, and they're kind of like Delta. They're like, hey, if you haven't flown in a while, come back and talk to us when you get some recency. We need to know that you're a sure bet, that you can pass a check ride, that you've flown, and all of that. So I didn't even bother applying to FedEx and UPS. I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time or theirs. But I looked at some other ones, and there's some other cargo carriers, and one of them is called Atlas, and they're a big cargo company. They're the biggest cargo company out there, short of the top 2 there. But they fly all over the world, 747s, 777s, and those are the airplanes, 2 of the biggest airplanes they fly. And I interviewed with them, and that went really well. There's all kind of things as well as a pilot you do to prepare for these interviews. There's businesses out there that prepare you One of them is they'll look at your resume and look at your application, make sure it's all good to go. And there's another company that'll do practice interviews with you. The whole idea is you've got to put the effort in, and the company's got to see that. If you show up and you're like, I didn't want to pay for that, and I'm not paying for that interview prep and everything else, you're the one guy out of 10 who didn't do it, and you kind of fumble along through the interview, and they need to hire 6 out of the 10. You know, you made it easy for them. So that's one thing I've learned with the flying world is you got to prepare ahead of time. You got to be, you know, just as good as everybody else. You know, all things being equal, you're doing fine. It's the other things that have to make you stand out. So, like, you know, my experience and my experience with the Air Force and things like that. But I can't those other things, those other interview things and ready with answers and everything else. You have to be ready. Does that make sense? Anyway. So I interviewed with Atlas. It was kind of cool. One of the people that there's 2 parts to the interview. The first part's a technical part where you sit down and with the captain, and he goes over, okay, well, tell me about this. What's this they call it METAR, meteorological weather report. Read this to me. What does this say? It's like a special code. It's like a different language, and you got to kind of read that and go, okay, well, here's the weather there, and then you have to look at airfield diagrams and taxi plans and arrival procedures and departure procedures and instrument approaches and can I fly this, or tell me about a time you had to do this flying and all that. So there's that technical part that lasts about 45 minutes, and you go through and he just asks you questions. And did fine on that. And then the second part is a HR interview where they put you in scenarios like, okay, well, what happens if your captain shows up smelling like alcohol? What are you going to do? Tell me about it. What are you going to do? You know, and I have to talk through it, and okay. And a lot of it with them is just making sure that you're the kind of person that somebody else could put up with for a long trip, you know. And that's true. It's hey, can I put up with this person for, you know, 2 weeks? Cramped up in an airplane, you know, flying along with not much to talk about. And so that was, and you know me, I mean, I don't have a problem talking, and I got plenty of stories. So that's what I told him. I said, I'm ready to tell my stories. So new people haven't heard my stories. So that interview went real well. One of the people that interviewed me actually was an old boss of mine back in the day. He remembered me. Of course, I remember him. And he had been a captain with Atlas for years, and so I got to chat with him a little bit and talk about that. So I interviewed with them, and they said, "Okay, great, everything went great. We'll get back with you here in 5 to 10 business days. We'll let you know." So in the meantime, I'm doing my Boeing thing. I'm going on trips. I'm back and forth and doing all this. And I had another trip to Altus. And there was another company that, ironically enough, I had looked at. And when I first started looking around at airlines and all the different choices out there and what I think I might want to do, there was one that I looked at first. The very first one I looked at, because a buddy of mine had told me about a friend of his who flew for them and loved it, and they're called Airline, Air Transport International. I forgot the name, ATI, and they are a prime contractor with Amazon, and they haul Amazon stuff around. So the Amazon packages you get the next day are flown in, probably by this company. There's a bunch of other ones that kind of do that, but that's their main business is Amazon. A lot of stateside cargo flying. And I looked into them, and some of the big draws for them and other cargo companies like Atlas is it's home based. So I get to live at home here in Charleston, and they call, you know, I get on a trip, and they say, okay, well, we need you in Portland, Oregon to start this trip. They will pay for an airline ticket for me to get to Portland and the hotel to put me up there. And when I'm done with my trip, which are typically a couple of weeks, they'll say, okay, and then they fly me back home. So I don't have to commute. I don't have to do the airline thing, hope for seats, try to reserve seats, you know, ride jump seat or whatever. I get a paid ticket to fly to where they need me to go. And I get to keep the airline points. And I get to keep the hotel points. So it's a win, win, win. Triple win. So I was looking hard at them. And I'm like, I did this with Atlas. I was pretty happy. I'm like, you know, I really, you know, I'm like, I really leaning towards Atlas. I really want to do this. And I'm sitting there going, well, I probably should put some other irons in the fire and see. So I put an application with United. Hadn't heard back from them at all. It's probably the same deal like with Delta. And I put an application in with ATI. And this was on a Saturday. And so I filled this out. It was pretty easy. Filled out. Of course, I had done applications with others, so I had all the information ready to go. So it was just a matter of typing it in, and all it went real quick. And hit send. So this was Saturday. I flew out on Monday. I was on my way to Altus, and I landed in Oklahoma City. And I'm standing there waiting for the shuttle bus to take me to the rental car, and bloop, there's an email from ATI going, "Hey, like what we see, we want to interview you. Give us a date." And I'm like, holy smoke. Well, that was quick. How about next Tuesday? So looks good, set it up. And I came back from my trip to Altus, and I'm like, okay, now I got to get ready for this interview. And I'm looking at, okay, what, you know, this is all kind of forums on, you know, people talk about, you know, here's some things they did, here's how it went. And everybody that said, you know, had something to say said that it was really laid back, very comfortable. It was a great experience. So, and sure enough, I interviewed, and it was great. And it was the most laid back interview I think I've ever had. Talking with the people, talking through things, asked them questions about life there at ATI and everything else. And they were like, so this interview, so before I did this interview, I'm like, you know what, it'd be nice if I knew if I was hired with that, because I still hadn't heard from Atlas. It'd be nice to know if I'd been hired, because I'd be a lot more relaxed in this interview knowing I had a job already, you know, which I already had a job with Boeing. And so that's, you know, of course, but I want to fly again. So I reached out to somebody I knew in the HR department there at Atlas. I said, hey, I still haven't heard anything. I hate to be that guy, but what's the word? You know, am I hired or not? And this person emailed me back and said, well, you know, I see that you were sent an email on this date saying that you're conditional, you know, you're in the pool, the hiring pool, with an expected training date somewhere in the future. So, okay, well, that put me a little bit at ease. Okay, that's great. And so I went into Atlas, or the ATI interview, you know, relaxed. I'm like, okay, well, at least I know that. So there's no telling, when is Atlas going to start training? I mean, it's probably July or whatever. And I talking to ATI the next day, and in the interview, and they're talking, and they go, hey, look, this is going real well. I started off with HR first. The HR guys, it was a couple of captains that were interviewing me, and it was, you know, same thing. Are you the type? And they were up front. They said, look, we're a lot big of this. Big part of this is just, are you the type of person that we can be on a trip with for 2 weeks? And we were talking and laughing, and it was really enjoyable. And they said, well, look, hey, we're not the hiring authority, but you're going to get called. And I'm like, well, that's good to hear. And I hung up with him. Got a drink of water, came back, dialed into the technical portion with another captain. And as I'm talking to him, you know, he gets a message going, hey, he said, well, yeah, these guys just texted me, said that it went exceptionally well with you. And I was, well, that put me at ease, and it put him at ease. It went really well, you know, and that was a great experience too. And anyway, they go, so when can you start? And I'm like, well, and we have a training class in 2 weeks. Can you be there? And I'm like, oh, no, not 2 weeks. I said, so they like the next day I get the conditional job offer and go, hey, you're hired. let us know if you can make the class in 2 weeks. And I went, well, no, I heard there was a class in April. Can I go to that one? And they said, sure. And so you're in. And so I start with ATI on April 3rd. And I'm super excited. And the more I look at it, the more I look at the company, and the more I look at what they do, I mean, it's going to fit right along. I've let Boeing know since I talked with my boss and said, hey, you remember when I told you that I wanted to fly again? Well, here it is. And they said, well, okay, we're gonna start talking with the folks here and let them know, hey, this is what we want to do with you. I said, look, I specifically want to go with a cargo company because that's going to give me time. I can work, when I'm not flying. I can when I'm home breaks, I can go on trips with Boeing and do this. And I think I can make this work. And they said, well, we think so too. And I supported. I'll get back to you. So I'm waiting to hear about that. So in the meantime, I'm getting ready for training, and I'm still doing a little bit of work with Boeing, and I'm super excited. And so I got hired. Thank God. This old dog still got a little bit of something to give. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's what's going on. That's what I've been. Sounds busy, doesn't it? It's been crazy. And the nice thing is I'm home, or I am only gone for a short amount of time from Arlene, but I'm home, and it's nice. It's nice, and it's good. Things are going well. Yeah. So with ATI, again, the trips are usually about 2 weeks long. They fly me there, fly me home, and it's mostly stateside stuff. There is some overseas flying just a little bit, but they typically go senior. Again, remember me talking about the seniority. So I'm happy with the upgrade time. So I mean, you could upgrade quickly with this company to captain, and that's another big draw for me. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. I'm pretty excited, and I plan to take you along on the adventure to see if you want to go. And just anyway, that's where I've been. So let me know if you have any questions or anything else. Look down here in the comments and let me know. But I will keep you along with the journey, and we'll see how all this goes. So hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Sooner, I think. Yeah, it'll be sooner. So anyway, take care. We'll see you next time.